Oh, what's up, everybody? Sorry, I'm a few minutes late here. I'm trying to figure my life out.
Yeah, easy man.
What's up, brother?
Oh,
How's it going?
another day in paradise. Um, Thanks everyone for joining on like real short notice here. We're gonna do two today. Just the office hours, real kind of impromptu, real. I think unofficial, kind of quick ask questions as we go along, and I'm probably gonna share my screen here in a minute to just kind of maybe go over some of the things, a lot of the questions specifically regarding this sheet that I've been getting that can maybe help to clarify maybe some easier flows, I guess, for like how to use the sheet. Specifically, I've been seeing a lot of like, oh, what do these things mean? And like on the personal allocation, like how do I do this particular scenario? I want to stake for X amount of months, or I want to lock for X amount of months. Like, how's that going to work, or how should that look? Um, so I think probably the best way is if you want to just like shout out some questions here, that's great. If you prefer to like type something, then just go into the questions. I'll be monitoring like the questions channel, and then we can kind of get to those too. I'm here for maybe an hour and a half, something like that. And if we finish and if everything is great, then we'll just cut it off or hang loose for a little bit. Otherwise, we'll just go until then.
Abhitav, have a quick question. Like, can we like record that session? Does that make sense? Or is
Yeah, that'd
like
be.
Crackboard not in here? Like, how does it work?
I don't know how to ask Craigbot. Does anyone know how to ask Craigbot? Fatty Bags is typing in questions. Maybe that. Wait, hold on.
I think on the chat you say Craig join, and then you tell him what channel. Policy office, I think, is what you tell him.
Oh, sick. Okay, nice.
Or you can bully him too. That works too.
Dope. Craig bullies. It's very true, Fatty Bags. Very true. Are there any questions about the general locking system or proposal just to start? I don't want to get too deep into everything and then someone comes in later like, but what is locking?
Just want to have a quick, I guess, clarification. Is it a hard lock? Like basically it's just like unicrypt locking where you can not touch the tokens at all? Or is it like a soft locking where you can unlock based on specific parameters? Like something
that's up for debate still. I know that like for example, Curse does hard locks where like you just straight up it's it's locked. No touching, no moving it. It's like it's going back to that after 4 years or whatever. And you can't do nothing with it afterwards. I think originally the proposal has been so far to make it a soft lock, so you can unlock at any time, but you just only get your principal back. So it's kind of risky to do, I guess, from that. Just because, like, you could have just staked the whole time and earned the staking rewards. If you lock and then unlock early, under Zeus's OIP-9, you wouldn't even get the staking rewards. You would just get your principal back, and that would be it. So it's a little harsh, I know, from that end, but it just really to reinforce that, like, you really got to be serious with the lock. Personally, I'm kind of for just making it not unlockable and then figuring out maybe some kind of way to do some kind of auctioning, direct peer-to-peer or something like that for it. But that is not official and that's not been worked out at all yet. But that's something that could be in the works if if we can kind of work that out.
Hybrid locks be possible where you basically lock a specific set, which is like the bare minimum to lock hard, and then you can have a soft lock for like the other half or 30% or something, like basically have like a vested locking?
I kind of view that as just stake. Well, yeah. Again, personally, I kind of view staking as like soft locking, sort of. It's kind of we're just kind of asking, pretty please don't, don't sell or whatever, and you get these rewards for the kind of that 3-3 mindset. I haven't thought much about like if we were to take it kind of like as an intermediate step, be like, okay, so you earn some amount for a soft lock, but then there's other ones like another higher amount for like a hard lock. If I understand well, that's what you're asking.
Yeah, kind of. Basically, like, well, you could basically have the soft unlock on like a curve. So basically, very similar to how, like supply based,
Now
almost like.
recording.
Oh, hey Craig, what's up?
My man, Craig.
So basically, have it so that you unlock based on a curve. Very similar to how like the P ohm structure was done, where basically like you can only vest your options based on a supply increase. So same thing, you could only unlock if a specific set of supply gets hit as well, because that could be interesting,
Right.
and that's a lot cleaner and more in line with what we're doing at Ohm too.
Right. Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. So it's almost like a vesting of the lock. So like a certain percentage is only able to be theoretically unlocked after maybe like 50% after half of your lock term is up or whatever.
Yeah.
That
You
could
have time or supply based, basically, whichever goal hits first. So like kind of like car warranties, mileage or time.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. That's definitely something to look into. And to the specific point, I think El Hombre actually also had a question in the chat about asking if we're able to lock up separate amounts for different periods in the same wallet. Yes, that is the plan. I think Zeus has already figured out how to do it in the contracts, but essentially your wallet would have like an array of tickets that you could hold. So it's not like you're combining different locks or whatever. It really is like you'd have one lock term for 6 months for X amount of ohm, and a separate lock term for maybe a different amount of ohm for 12 months or 3 months or whatever. And they don't average; they're completely separate. Like you'll have one amount that does vest in 6 months, and then the other amount that would vest in 12 months. So they really are very different, and you can do that in the same wallet. Did Craig leave? Heard he.
Yeah,
he
he's being a massive cunt right now.
Gosh.
We'll get him in here in a second. Sorry, guys. Worst case, I'm going to boot up OBS and start recording. So before you start getting real juicy with stuff, let me do that just in case.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Now recording.
Oh shit!
Right.
Is that our boy Craig?
Craig, stay, please.
I don't even see him. Where is he? Oh, no.
Recording here. No.
Oh.
Okay. Cool.
All right, I'm going to boot up OBS for you, and you can get rocking and rolling.
Yeah, that'd be very much appreciated.
Time, but...
So yeah, no, but anyways, just to wrap that up, you're going to be able to lock up separate, have separate kind of locks in the same wallet without having to go through a bunch of rigmarole of making new wallets or having to think about averaging your locks or anything like it. They were really like separate tickets, separate, almost like a bank CD kind of a thing. Like you have one amount and it's locked up for this amount of time, and you have a totally different amount and it's locked up for that amount of time. Other general questions before I jump into the spreadsheet?
Got one for you, Abby. Have you guys discussed the APY reduction for non-locked stakers?
Discussed in what way?
I mean,
Like
was there? Yeah, exactly.
No, we haven't come to a firm conclusion about that because that is, I guess, mostly defined by the reward rate, and we haven't kind of agreed on. Right now the only official reward rate that we're going down to is 0.0035, and that's going to be good for a while. But of course, as the protocol matures, that rate might go up or down or whatever else. Just it depends, and it's not really super defined by the locking. It's kind of a separate thing. So what we're as far as how the APY kind of pertains to locking, what we're trying to define is how much someone, I guess, deserves or should be rewarded for locking for a year over like the amount that they would stake. So, for example, if you agree to a lock for a year, you should earn 300% or 3 times more than you would by staking that amount of time. So that's kind of the question or the discussion that we're having internally so far. I think we could probably validate, have some unofficial validation by saying, okay, well, with that in mind, at this certain reward rate, so like 0.0035 or 0.35% reward rate, like you'll still see, I don't know, just pulling some number out, like 4 to 8,000% APY for staking. So that could be kind of a validation there to say, okay, it seems reasonable for now. So can locked tokens be used as collateral? I don't think so. We haven't like finished coding that side yet, but it's probably, in all likelihood, you won't be able to do anything with the locked token.
Daily one take some shit coins. Thanks, man. Yeah, we were.
I didn't catch that. Sorry. Okay. But anyways, yeah, it's just to answer GS's question. The lock tokens are in all likelihood not going to be able to be like used as collateral. The main reason for that is that it's not beneficial to the protocol really, or to the person necessarily to use it as collateral, because assuming, I guess Rory Fuse is a little bit different, but like in a general sense, if you use it for like lending or anything that requires collateral, if it has a risk of liquidation, that's going to be a lot of risk assumed by the protocol. And as Zeus said in his discussion about wrapped staked ohm and sending it in I think it was the Yunt Capital podcast, he was talking about how we want to make sure that if you are able to use it as collateral, the risk should be assumed by the user, and we can't really decouple that with locking. So I think, long story short, probably won't be able to move the locked tokens around. So I'm going to fire up my Excel sheet and maybe go over some different use cases and different examples.
Like it's without question.
Yeah. I can't hear you, Kawa. Sorry. If you want to throw your question into the chat, because I can't really hear you so well. Possibly hot mic. Unclear. Okay, so I'm just going to throw in my screen, and hopefully y'all can see the beautiful spreadsheet. What I want to do is I want to go over maybe some basic examples of what people have talked about doing and what that should look like. So if y'all have any like specific ones that you want to throw out, be like, I plan to lock for 6 months with 10 ohm or something like that, and I also want to stake for 10 ohm. Then throw it out there. But we can just get started into 1 or 2 examples that I've seen. And I specifically also want to go over like what the rollover different options mean too. So, for example, if you want to lock 10 ohm for 6 months, and you want to just do that once and then stake afterwards, it means that you're locked for that 6 months, And then after that 6 months is up, then for the rest of the 6 months in this 1 year time frame, you just stake afterwards. So you're not earning on your multiplier anymore after that 6 months. You're just kind of staking, playing it safe or whatever. So if you want to do that, then you just do 10 ohm under the 6 month tranche, and then you do lock once and stake locking option afterwards. So then you can kind of see, okay, if I do that, then I'll have 1700 ohm after 1 year, which would be around an API of around 16,000%. Versus if you just rolled it over, meaning you locked for 6 months and then immediately locked it for 6 months again, then afterwards, instead of 1700, you'd have 2700 ohm. So you see the benefit of rolling over, and continuing to lock your ohm up is pretty great versus just staking, especially for the longer lock terms. I'm going to start, just to back up for a second, I'm going to start on like the real simple cases here. So just only looking at the personal allocation tab and kind of how to use it. So instead, what if you said, and maybe if we have other questions about like the policy state and external variables, we can go over that too. So what if instead you wanted to lock for 6 months and lock for 3 months instead? So instead of 2700 ohm afterwards, if you just rolled over, you'd have 2300 ohm if you rolled over each one. So again, going back to kind of the fact that you'll always earn more rolling, even rolling over, if you do a longer lock term. So it's always beneficial to the user, basically, to do a longer lock if that's what they want. Questions so far? Anyone want to chime in with like a specific scenario that they want to look at a little deeper?
Train yourself, man. How do they like clients? They set partners the best interests at heart. They pursue the clients.
I see that we have one question about showing the effect of DCA into 12-month staking. So RCP3, when you said the effect of dollar cost averaging into 12-month staking, when you say that, do you mean like you keep buying every month and then like throwing it into 12-month staking, or not exactly sure? Okay. So the 12-month staking would be like every month you enter in another 12-month lock term. So again, because those are going to be separate tickets, I guess what you could do in that case is just look at. That's a good question, actually. So, for example, in the first month, you do 10 ohm into that. So after 12 months, you'd have 4,300 ohm in that case. And then if you did, what was 10 and 5 times 11 months afterwards? Oh, it didn't like that very much, did it? Yes, there we go. After around 11 months, for that one, you'd have 2,500 afterwards. Again, only looking at like, what you'd get after that amount of time. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's what I mean to say is basically you take each month, you buy, 10 ohm and then lock it for a 12-month period of time. And you can just kind of sum those up afterwards to see, okay, after, 10 months, after 11 months, after 12 months, and then after each amount of months, which you just change on the number of epochs here, you can see, okay, just add those up and see, okay, what would I have if I did that after 1 year and just DCA like that? Yeah. So I saw a question. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't catch that. So, well, anyways, yeah, I guess to directly answer question I see about the 20K% base APR or APY for non-locked OMIs, we haven't. Yeah, it's not really decided yet, I guess. So, in this case, to get a little bit into it, supposing that we were to take, I'm going to go into the policy state tab here. Supposing this was the actual policy proposal that would get passed in the future, and this is what we started with, staking only APY would be around 10,700.
Can you unmute, please?
So that can change. By the way, this APY can change by quite a bit depending on what what our policy terms are that we decide on to start. So, for example, if we were to change this to 500%, which again that means that if you agree to lock for 1 year, so that's 1,095 epochs. That's 1 year's worth of rebases. Then you should earn 5 times the amount over staking than you normally would. So, and then if we just balance this real quick, you see that. Let's see. You would see that the APY went down basically because it has to find a balance to what the what I guess the whole point is that we don't want to give out more. We don't want to give out more ohm based on the multipliers than what the reward rate is. So we have to match the reward rate. And so if you have higher APY relatively on the longer end terms, it means you have lower APY on the shorter end terms to compensate for it. So again, going back to this, if we decide to do 500% over staking, then your APY goes from, for staking only, would go from 10,700 to 8,400% APY. So it's a little sensitive to that that variable that we put in. But again, this is where the I think the healthy debates would come in to discuss and agree on what someone kind of deserves to earn for locking for a certain amount of time.
Is there a variable rate for the APY depending on how many people have staked their own? Like locked it. So say, we have more people deciding to lock their own, the rates go down, or would they just remain the same?
Yeah, so they would go down actually for sure. So I think that the target weights here are probably a bit aggressive. I don't anticipate 75% of the ohm being locked versus staked because we do have the wrap staking, composability, and if we don't allow composability with the locked, I don't think it's going to be 75% of people doing it. Which again, we don't want everyone locking up. We want to have composability, we don't have that. So that balance there could be it. So to answer directly the question, I'll go in here. We'll say this is under a balanced system, which means that this is what the APY would look like if all the ohm was under this kind of spread of the locking terms. But if everyone, for example, one of the questions is what happens if everyone just jumps into 12 months immediately and everything is at 12 months, then you see the APYs will go down by quite a bit here. So instead of 8,000, you're at 4,000. And instead of, I think it was 51,000, you're at 21,000 percent APYs. Versus, I think to start, when everyone is just staking and just starting to get into the locks, you would see your APY changes by quite a bit if everyone is just staking. So everyone just staking would be 21,000. What the current APY would be 0.35% reward rate. And And the next person, I guess what this APY means here is if you were to jump in on the 12-month lock, you'd start seeing 184%, 184,000% APY. But it also means that the target weights start moving around. And as more and more people go into the 12-month locking, for example, the APYs start to go down by like quite a lot afterwards. So like for example, here, like you have more people starting to go into the locking terms, the APYs have gone down because of that. Back to quarter stake, nice and even. Thanks, Dario, for checking in. Yeah, it's a great question, Jay Fry. Does everyone understand the difference between the policy state and the personal allocation tabs? We'll do a bit of explaining on that, just kind of overview. The policy state would be the basic, I guess, offers, the basic parameters that the personal allocation tab uses to define how much you would make. So again, for example, if you remember, we had, I think at 10 ohm before, it was 2,700. Now it's 3,000 ohm afterwards. So the policy state variables like affect your personal allocation, like the results of your personal allocation afterwards. For the most part, people aren't going to need to go into the policy state unless they're interested in like this debate about how much should someone earn over staking or whatever. I think once if we do come to an agreement on this like these variables here and we make it into the proposal, then what I'll do is like in the spreadsheet that that we send out, I'll update that with the proposed amounts, and then you can see from there. Okay, these are not hard set, but like, the proposed amounts, what's my personal allocation going to be based on these actual proposed numbers? Because again, these aren't like set in stone yet. The 300%, that's kind of the default. It's not set in stone. But once we do put something forth, then I will update this to kind of reflect what the reality, should everyone vote yes on it, be.
Hi, Abhibab.
Yeah.
Question. Yeah, no, great job with the spreadsheet. Just, I was wondering how you guys are thinking about a relationship of locked staking, APY, and system growth. System growth meaning in daily bond sales. So, the context, like if everyone stakes 12 months, APY goes down, sell pressure goes down, price per ohm goes up. It could inhibit, the rate at which we're selling ohms every day. So I'm wondering how you guys are thinking about just kind of keeping an eye on system growth relative to how many people will stake, relative to what that will do to APY, and just that whole relationship. So would love to hear some thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. I can answer a little bit. I think there's other people on the call too here right now that can answer probably better than I can. But my understanding, if I understand your question right, it is like, okay, if everyone jumps to 12 months, then the staking APY goes way down, right? And then that means that bonds are more, more attractive, and more people use bonds, and then like it changes the system that way. So for me, anyways, that is exactly why I wouldn't necessarily want to go to the effect of that is to make, to countermeasure that, you want to make your rewards for locking for long periods of time not like insane. So like if you put a 1,000% reward for for locking for a long time, like more people are going to want to lock for a long time, which means exactly what you see happen. So that's why it's really important to get this kind of percentage here pretty reasonable, such that we don't have a crazy amount of people locking for a long period of time. That's definitely come into the discussion before about deciding on that kind of percent bonus that you'd see.
Thank you.
Other thoughts on that from like other policy big brains? Because that's a really good question that I might not have answered perfectly.
Na ťurovek tomu bude robiť nejaké veci ešte. Ale myslím, že keď poslanecky nebudeme vedieť. To je také, že LP bonding, vieš, to tiež takisto to nejaký long position? Long period. Niečo, LP bond.
Yeah, a lot of hot mics today. That's good.
Huh?
Yeah, Jay Fred, thanks for explaining that a little bit better.
Dann musst du nicht zum Training.
Nico, hot mics. Yeah, so that's kind of a medium dive, not super deep dive into the sheet. I haven't gone yet over the external variables and what they do. Basically, what I tried to do here with the spreadsheet is to see, okay, yeah. So you have your policy state and you have your your personal allocation set. So one of the questions that I'd seen was, okay, so what if everybody, like jumps ship and starts like unlocking and selling and stuff like that. So what you can say for that is if you see a big drop in people staking and locking, then you can choose one of these drop options here. Again, this is getting, I think, a lot deeper than probably what most people want to look at for the spreadsheet. But like as a what if scenario, what if right before the 12-month locking, people start dumping? Then the effect is your total supply that's staked is really dropping. And let's see, if we go back to personal allocation, you can see here that I'm kind of no, that's pretty good actually. Right at the end, if you're locked for 12 months, your APY starts jumping way up. And the reason is that because people are unlocking, more of the OM at the reward amount is going to you versus other people. If that makes sense. So that's kind of a like a what if kind of a thing. Yeah. I think the APY over time was a pretty good indicator of like that there, very visual. You can kind of see it on the earnings on your one OM, for example. But you see like it gets real. That rise really increases by quite a bit if you were to do that. You can do like middle, like right in the middle, something happens like 6 months, then you can see you have a big jump there and it starts to, as people start coming back in or whatever, your API starts decreasing or whatever. So you can really see pretty easily there what that could be. Another my Unfold Tees holding his t-shirts. So I'm muting a lot of people, by the way, so I can't really.
I'm going through. I got it right here, muted. Hey, if you guys aren't talking, please keep your mic muted so that the speaker doesn't get interrupted. I'm gonna mute you if you don't, and then just message us in chat, and I'll unmute you when you're ready to ask a question. Thanks.
All right, thanks all. I got another question. Will we have bonds that offer locked OM vesting? Would you purchase a bond that vests over 12 months for an enhanced bond discount? That's a very interesting question, which I have not thought about before. I don't know if someone else from policy wants to join in or jump in about that, but the question was, we have bonds that offer locked OM vesting. So it's like, I guess, a 12-month bond instead of a 5-day bond. And it's based on the locked, like the 12-month locked amount. I had seen a lot of questions or some discussion before about like bonding for the like a longer amount of time and the impact of that. And I don't have a really good, I think a good enough understanding to answer the question well. So if someone wants to.
I think the problem with like longer term bonds is actually that we would go into the like problem domain of guaranteed yields, guaranteed APYs, if that translates, because then we would say you purchased that bond for like 12 months and then like what do you expect? Then we have to promise you X amount of OM actually, which is in fact what we like couldn't really figure out in like good faith when we worked on that like locked staking sheet and like the whole idea so far, which is also why the APYs are actually more variable over time and like actually change depending on the allocation within the term in which you lock, right? Just how Abhipek earlier showed. if there are more like 12 months lockers staked in that term, then everyone kind of dilutes like that bucket. It's like in any other yield farm, pretty much. And so 12 months bonds would be super difficult because like we would actually have to promise like a huge amount of ohm, which we maybe cannot like hold that promise. So these were just the thoughts that we had so far. But if there are like better ideas for it or people think that's cool, and we can probably talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I also want to, I guess, reinforce is that for locking, there's no, and in the same way as with staking too, there's no guarantee what your APY will be over your lock term. What we can only guarantee is that you will earn, a certain percent or a certain amount more, per epoch than you would by staking. So, I haven't seen that come up yet, but I just want to kind of make sure that we're all understanding that, okay, these APYs are not a guarantee. As our reward rate changes or as the total supply changes, you're changing the amount that it's getting rebased. So, your APY is going to change too. I mean, we see that already with, the APYs of the golden days of Ohm, the crazy 100,000, 5 million% when we missed the rebase or whatever. Obviously we're not in that world anymore. And so we still are not going to be guaranteeing any APYs. I think getting back to what XH3 had said before, that's not, I think, desirable for us or even really possible for us to do at this juncture. Maybe years down the road when everything is like really well established and stable and everything like that, that could be something worth looking into. But at this point, just because things are changing so quickly, we're not able to make that kind of guarantee.
Right. There's right now that question about like ideal balance of percentage staked over like 3, 6, and 12 months. And I'm not sure if anyone can say like what's the ideal balance there. It's actually like not really predictable how people will behave and choose their own terms, which is also like we just have to be like super like conservative maybe and moderate in like incentivizing 12 months locking, because the problem is like once you're in there, like you're in there for a whole year and like nobody can let you out again, right? I mean, you can like unstake, but then you forfeit all your rewards. Like that is the current idea. You get back your principal, but you really need to understand that if you yeet everything into 12 months, like that is the game that you play. Like you have to wait, right? So I'm not sure it's predictable. I'm not sure we have this like ideal like picture of how the allocation should be balanced. It's just that in order to not inhibit like system growth and in order to like keep bond purchases like coming, we should not over incentivize like locking actually, just in order to keep the composability of Ohm and like to further enable and incentivize other use cases than locking.
Yeah, exactly. We had touched on that in a debate I think last week about that exact point there. So we're going to have more debates, I think, to really more fine tune that that specific point, because it's important for us to really important, I think, to have a good balance of locking versus staking. So those changes will be, I think, as we hone in on a target to propose, I think those changes will be reflected in the sheet too, just to give everyone kind of a more accurate idea of kind of the direction that we're heading. Oh yeah, Ananth had a really good point about showing maybe the multiplier instead of the APY in the personnel allocation. I agree. I think a lot of weight is maybe unnecessarily put on APY in terms of that, because again, it's not guaranteed, and you definitely won't see that exact number after 1 year. If you see that exact number after 1 year, then buy a lottery ticket, because it's like astronomical odds of that. It could be higher, it could be lower. It just depends on what ends up happening with with that. So as far as what we can guarantee, either the in the policy state, either the multiplier here or like this percent bonus over staking, more than likely it'll be this this number here that we can guarantee, which in my opinion is kind of, and it's a little bit opaque anyways, where it's kind of like, okay, so what this is basically saying, I guess, is if you lock for 12 months, then every rebase you're earning on 40.4% more ohm than you would be by staking. So if you lock in 1 ohm, you will be earning on 1.4 ohm basically for the year. And so that's where you come up with, that's where it comes up with afterwards, all of these like bonuses and much higher APYs and everything like that is based on that, that multiplier there. So currently that's what we can definitely guarantee, that for sure that number wouldn't necessarily change, and under the current proposal, that number would stay constant for your ticket. I was talking earlier about those locking tickets. So if you were to enter into a locking term for 12 months, you get that ticket in your basket, I guess I'll call it, in your wallet, and that's what you're earning on. If you at the same time enter into a 6-month lock term too, you'd have a separate ticket with that 28% kind of multiplier on your in your wallet too. That's something I think we can much more easily guarantee, and so that's something that maybe we should focus more on in the sheet too. So yes, very good point.
I have one more, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. Ask away.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess for me, like the trade-off I'm wondering is, there's this Rari fuse pool that's coming up, or like there's, I guess, more opportunities coming up on, what you can do with a stake dome. And then on the flip side, there is this, locked staking for 6-12 months, whatever. And I feel like for me, there's like these two are in competition in terms of, what's the best use of these ohms. The staking gives me like more, I would say, comfort because it's more self-contained. I'm taking less risk on what other people are doing. But I was curious if that's like another sort of metric that you're thinking about, right? Like in terms of, what kind of, I would say, net returns people could realize if they didn't stake and, went and used their stake dome in other protocols. And I guess just more broadly, I mean, are we competing with, partnerships that we want to do with locked staking, or am I just reading too much into it?
That's another great question. Thank you for asking all of these very deep and good questions.
I think the use cases that we just provide and like integrate, like they are kind of competing against one another, but it's not that like these partnerships are kind of like in competition with one another, because we want a healthy partnership with like everyone, right? It's just that any given use case has like specific, I don't know, risk profiles and like strategies attached to it, and based on maybe your own personality type or character and like appetite for risk and whatnot, like you choose the right use case for yourself where you think, well, this is the game I want to play. This is kind of the strategy that I'm like most comfortable with and can like maybe get the most profit out of it, right? So in that sense, having a broader palette of different use cases, like locking and staking might be a use case, and then like some lending platforms, lending might be a use case, and so forth. How you choose that should like be up to you, but the use cases overall that we integrate with and that we provide, like they are certainly in some kind of competition to one another, which is also then again why we should not over incentivize one or the other use case, right? Because then everyone would just end up locking for 12 months, for instance, or like everyone would just end up lending on Fuse, and like that is not good.
I think that's a brilliant articulation. By the way, XH3, I love everything you write. So thank you. Like learned so much from you. But I think like that's kind of what I was getting at. That I think there's like a market clearing price for this distribution of locked staking, and I think we're going to see more of it as like these as we start seeing more composability. But yeah, and so I guess the last question then is like, is there the timing to implement, like in the timing to implement, like would you be looking to kind of wait and see how the partnerships do and then you'll implement, or is this kind of running on its own independent trajectory? And I guess more specifically, at what point do we start like voting on this to implement this thing to go forward?
I want this lock staking to be effective right now, but
Got it.
then there are just problems that we need to address, and people for good reasons said that like it's a fundamental change that we should not urge or like push too much. So we want to take our time, and then all of these use cases and partnerships that are coming out now, they all have their own timeline. Like sometimes we try to like tweak it a little bit more strategically, but usually it's all just like independent, and then when it's ready, it's ready. And we don't know when lock staking is ready. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, agreed. We definitely want to take our time and get it right the first time, or as close to right the first time as we can. Where it's never going to be perfect. Just like all the parameters are not going to be perfect, because that's what the whole point of the policy group is, to iterate and to improve. So one thing I wanted to point out that I thought was pretty interesting aspect of the locking, I guess, mechanism is that, to your point, Asfi, is your name pronounced Asfi?
No, it's Asfi. It's like ass and then fee. So
Okay,
that's
got
the
it.
best way to pronounce it. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. So, anyways, to the point of with like, I guess the locked staking mechanism, it has, it's a bit self-adjusting, right? Where like the more people that kind of yeet into 12 months, proportionally, you'll see like the APY for 12 months goes down faster than the APY for staking does. And I'll explain that with a little show and tell here. Assuming the system is balanced at these parameters, again, not going to be exactly these, at these, weights, and we only have 6% of people or of ohm in locking for 12 months. You'll see 51,000 versus 8,000, 12 months versus staking. If we then go to all 12 months, everyone just like yeets into here. Your percent APY for locking 12 months has gone down like by a lot more than the APY that you get for just staking. Staking has gone down by like 45%, and 12-month locking has gone down by like 60 or 65% or something like that. So it goes down proportionally a lot faster. The more people that, I guess, go above that balance that we've defined in this policy tab here. So all that to say, to your point of, how does it affect if we kind of have a system imbalance and a lot of people are going into, 12 months? Well, as more people go into 12 months, the APY goes down more, faster and faster, or more, I guess, more and more relative to staking. And so staking is going to look relatively more attractive than the locking for 12 months is, just as a result of this system, which means that, again, to the other point that you made, another really good point of the kind of net earnings for these composability, because if you, throw your composable staked ohm into, some other yield generating, you're getting APY on top of this. Maybe your APY here plus whatever other, APY that you get for your composability over a year, exceeds that 12-month amount, and you actually benefit more by staking and then doing this composability, yield generator. And then you're actually all the people who stayed in staking and did that are actually, like big brain, and they're earning more. And so that should kind of help to self balance that out a little bit more, and bring this amount back down to, maybe a more reasonable number.
Thank you.
So there was I think Ananth is having a question about if there was a change in like APY over like right after 6 months or something like that, would you benefit by doing a 6-month locking and then staking for the remainder of 6 months? Would it be better than just locking for the 12 months? And the answer is no, because 12 months or a longer lock term is always going to earn you a higher return per epoch than a shorter amount of I guess locking epochs. So 12 months is always going to earn you more per epoch than 6 months will, because the APY is affecting all of the locking terms the same, and your base rate for all of the terms is the same, and then you have the multiplier on top of it. And because the multiplier for 12 months is always bigger than 6 months, you can't, you're always better off in that specific case by locking for the 12 months. I got another question here. When you lock stake, is your APY fixed for the term, or does it float according to market behavior? No, it is not fixed. Your APY is floating the same way, in the same way that your staking APY is floating right now. It's the same as what would happen in the future. And I think XH3 had touched on that before about why it's kind of dangerous for us to guarantee APYs at this point, namely because the APYs are like super high right now, and guaranteeing that. I mean, we do have really good run rate right now. We have like 7 months of run rate right now, but guaranteeing that for 12 months is just like very risky at this point. So maybe in the future, if we have like really stable run rate and we get very confident that we can do that, that could be another product that we build and implement. But napkin math for me says probably years away for that. Target runway. Very good question. Is there a target runway in mind? Once you reach that runway, is increasing APY a possibility? Possible, although I have seen discussions before. I think that what our target runway is still in discussion. People have a good feeling, like amongst the policy folks, that like the 7 months or whatever, right, what we have right now, we're pretty comfortable with that. We're feeling okay about that right now, but I think long term that could change, depending. But I think the target runway is a good kind of ongoing discussion. That being said, once we reach the target, in mind, I think increasing APY is one thing, but then also using those, I guess excess the excess amount in the treasury to increase our APY or our one way further. Talking right now. Is it cheeseburger? Cheeseburger? I can't. It's kind of hard to talk.
No, it's 0xb333.
Oh, F. Sorry. Anyways, one possibility is when we have excess reserves like that would normally increase our runway. The Treasury could use those for something else. Like, for example, it could be possible to dollar cost average into ETH and start bringing in Ethereum into the Treasury instead of just like stables on like a very limited amount. So that's one possible use case of additional runway. Another use case, of course, is increasing APY. But I think part of the discussion that we've had before, and especially with OIP 11, to decrease the APY, the benefits of decreasing the APY are actually like really good. Not necessarily, not just from like the bonding users, but also just from like the overall effect on the system. So again, not to say that APY of 0 is the best case, but there's a balance there. And I think all this to say possibly, using those excess funds for something other than, staking or locking rewards in the future could be maybe more beneficial to us as a whole.
I just want to say something in support of what you said about APY, Bebop, and that is that I've been playing around with this calculation quite a bit, like time to risk free at different stages. And it's interesting that right now our risk free value per ohm is over $15. When you guys started, it was $1. And so, but the price was 500 when you guys started. But that's been one interesting observation that while the APY has come down, but your growth rate in RFP per ohm is rising. And so this time to risk-free band is kind of staying pretty tight. It's like staying within like 6 to 12 months. And that's really cool to see from an investor's perspective that even though APY is coming down, like there's a big offset that's also happening through just revenue growth.
In your opinion, should we be working to decrease the time to your risk-free value as much as possible?
No, I think no. I think what I love about this project is like, everything there's like the design is like trying to find market clearing prices for so many things like APY, no, absolutely not. No, I think it's just that for what I said is just an observation that for me that was like a cool variable to see. I think the only thing for me is important is that like I want to as a staker, I'd like that growth should be value accretive to stakers, and that will happen if risk-free value per ohm is increasing. You've only had 2 days, May 29th and May 30th, when risk-free value per ohm declined. Other than that, it's always increased. And so long as that happens, I'm like very happy customer.
Yeah, I think that's a really good synthesis on it. And yes, I totally agree with you.
Must blockchain please mute.
I'm just going through and muting them myself, which means that if they do actually have a question and then start talking, I'm not gonna hear them. So sorry for y'all in advance. Let's see. We have two kind of pending questions or thoughts in the text. Number one is giving an idea of what questions that users should keep in mind when playing with the spreadsheet and the numbers. I think that's a really good like thought to have when you're playing around with this. Number one that Jay Fry added was, how should the 12-month locked staking? How much should someone earn over unlocked staking? So I guess one thing to keep in mind is when you're playing around with like your personal action numbers, knowing what your risk tolerance and your thoughts when you're playing around with like the ohm deposited and rollover and everything like that, asking yourself, do I feel like that's a good enough or high enough reward for for my deposits within my risk tolerance? Or just as equally important, is that too much? Do I feel like I'm being over rewarded for that? And that can be a tough question because it's always like, oh yeah, shoot, I'll take more ohm for that. But usually, especially within this debate, you have to keep that in mind too. The other side, is that too much for the risk that I feel like I'm taking? So that's a great point. And I think that for me, anyways, as far as using the numbers right now, that is kind of the number one question, for that. Maybe another secondary question could be like, do I feel like I need to lock for even longer than 12 months? Is that something that is really beneficial for me as well? So, how long of a risk do you want to take on this? Is 12 months at a time like enough or not? And as it relates to the policy state, another question is, I think another big question is, what should it be if you want to delve this deep into the policy? What should our target be for, percentage, kind of the ratio of ohm staked versus ohm locked? Should it be what the default is, 25% to 75%? In all honesty, my answer is probably no. I wouldn't. If it's personally for me, I would want to do it most kind of a 50-50 kind of a thing. But what the default is the default right now. But should it be even more? Should everyone be locking or whatever? That's a question that I think the users should be asking themselves when you're using and thinking about the numbers. And what effect does that target weight difference play on the numbers too, as it pertains back to kind of how much should you earn over unlock staking? So yeah, just to I guess reiterate that or to synthesize it, 2 questions I would really focus on is the one that JFry4 put into the questions chat. How much should 12-month locked staking earn? Am I getting properly rewarded more than I thought or less than I thought for locking for a certain amount of time over staking? And then the second one is what percent of people should be locking versus staking? I think to start, and then other questions can come in afterwards for that. So Anant had another good question about thoughts on incrementally increasing the price floor, increasing the treasury, and also RFV of Ohm. I am not the master of this question. I might be the pseudo guy about locking, but for sure price floor and RFV, I'm not the expert in. So if someone else wants to chime in with a thought on incrementally increasing the price floor, which could increase the treasury, are there risks to that? I'd say that could be probably a whole nother office hours just for price floor and bonding and the like. So those are good. And yeah, XH3 has a lot of thoughts, I think, about the price floor. He's a really good resource for that. So not if you want to reach out to him directly, you can kind of get that answered directly. But it's a very good question for the group here too. I've seen people talk about like going up to a 1,000 DAI price floor for the Ohm, and it's like, that's I think a little extreme. But incrementing it up or down. It sounds to me anyway, it's like an entirely other lever that is so far been completely unused and untouched by policy so far, which probably is for good reason for what I'll say right now. So Panda had a question. Not sure if this was asked, but what happens after the 12-month lock? What incentives could be in place to stop a massive amount of Ohm from flooding the market? I've seen that question. That's another very good FAQ there that I think maybe could be an entirely other tab of the spreadsheet. Because I've seen that question and we're concerned a lot about what happens if all the 12-month lockers kind of market dump after their 12 months is up. I have a few thoughts about that. Number one, just from the system design itself, not everyone is going to lock for 12 months on the same day. So from day one, not necessarily everyone is going to be, doing the 12-month lock. It'll be spread out over, the months and weeks following, if we were to implement this. So it wouldn't, you wouldn't necessarily have this like kind of black swan event of, June 30th of 2022, $1 million gets unlocked and immediately gets dumped. So I don't think that would necessarily be something that happens, just because by the time the system gets rolling, you have a lot of daily locks and unlocks happening. So The other kind of point the thought that I have about that is something I went over a bit before, where if you do have a lot of people doing their 12-month lock, unlocking immediately, and selling afterwards, if you go into the external variables tab and do like a late drop where maybe you're on a 12-month lock and you have 3 months to go, and all these other 12-month lockers just vested their terms and market dumped, you'll see like your APY spike because you have a lot less ohm in the system that's being rewarded for staking or locking. So you're going to get a larger share of the pie of these rewards that are being dripped versus before, and so your APY is going to spike. So it's actually in the long term actually a bit beneficial for the long term lockers too. So there's that thought as well. And then finally, just for 12-month lockers, normally if they're locking for 12 months, their intention is probably not like the whales that we've seen who stake for, who have historically been staking for a couple weeks, 2xing on their own and dumping. People clearly aren't like in it for the good of the protocol. So I think we'll see a lot less of that in the 12-month locking than like what we've seen with like these big whales coming in and then dumping, because you're in for 12 months. I mean, you clearly have some interest in the longevity of the protocol itself. I'm gonna have to jump off here pretty soon, actually, but I'll give it another maybe 5-10 minutes, something like that, and then I gotta go. So thanks, Jay, for all of your work here, especially with your tabulating of the questions and stuff. So I really like that. I appreciate that a lot. We have another question here in the chat. In terms of the reward for locking it, or I guess a thought, I think very good thought to bring up. I think we can't underestimate the potential for ohm price declines causing the ROI of lock staking to decline. So thinking about that in terms of over rewarding lockers is important because the market risk may be above what is accounted for in this model. And so I think you're thinking of it in terms of, okay, so I see what you're saying. You're considering your return on investment in terms of the USD or euro or whatever amount. And that's a very good point, because this spreadsheet only takes into account your own, that you'll have. So your APY, as we see in the staking models currently too, your APY and your returns and everything is always based on a price of ohm. And long term, as is kind of the entire point of one of the main tenets, I think, of Olympus being that your purchasing power should remain relatively stable over time, at least, anyways. And again, in the long term, that should be the case too. That should be taken into account. If you're thinking more in terms of where we're still in kind of a development and things can go up and down, that is something that, yes, I agree, isn't necessarily taken into account in the spreadsheet. So would be interesting to, I think, another thought, while you're playing around with the numbers, I guess, to say is, okay, what if the price of ohm goes down by 30% over a year, or what if it goes up by some amount over a year? Because we are seeing right now, anyways, going from $200 to $300 in the last month or so, as it's happened. So interesting too. But as far as the spreadsheet goes, anyways, I guess to wrap that up, we can only estimate what the rewards are going to be in ohm, because that's all that I guess the system is going to be giving out. We're only giving out in terms of ohms, and so the price is a little bit not irrelevant. I mean, it is very relevant from a personal standpoint. I make my kind of decisions on my kind of home and otherwise based on US dollars too. So I get it from the personal side. To that end, I think I will maybe retool maybe a specific calculator. If we were to pass this, an upcoming proposal to do it, I think having something more like a calculator with price and a little bit more streamlined for that to go from a very personal decision to. So I hope that kind of completes the thought, anyways, on what you're saying to voice. Another question on when we would implement the policy and the policy for lock staking. And again, we really want to get this right. I've been putting a lot of time to talk and debate and everything into it, and I think we're not quite there yet in terms of making a hard proposal. So we're taking our time with this. There's a lot of other stuff going on in Olympus right now. A lot of really good, interesting things going on right now. So I don't think we really have the need to push for this. It's not a make or break thing. I think it's another really interesting tool to add. So we're not rushing this. I would say probably it's in a month's horizon kind of for implementation, not weeks, but certainly not days. So more debate to come. I think that date will have a harder target, as we kind of agree on more and more things related to the locking. But we don't have anything specific for it yet. The voice. I think you have a good point there. Someone who's been involved in your long lockups and the price, of it declines so much so that you're below your initial investment despite those rewards. It's key. Again, for an individual calculation for that, that's really important to take into consideration too. So I think last question for me, and then I'm going to have to hop off. Since we're looking at a 12-month locking with 44,000 APY, maybe that could be the initial target runway. I think, again, we have to think about the runway in terms of the rewards percent that we're giving out, because the APY that you see here is balanced based on the target weight. The runway is only defined by the reward rate here. So, even if you give out, more ohm to the 12-month locking than you are to staking by a lot or a little, it always balances out to, that reward rate that we're giving out on a per epoch basis. Hope that's clear that no matter what we give out for 12-month locking versus 6 months staking locking versus just staking, it all has to balance out to the reward rate that we're giving out. That's a hard requirement of the system. That the number of ohm that we're giving out is only based on the total number of ohm that we're giving out is only based on that reward rate. And therefore our target runway too. Anything else last minute before we before I get off? Otherwise, I'm going to try and do one later this year. This year, haha, just kidding. This evening for those on the coast of Americas, it's going to be this evening. For those in Asia, it's going to be I think in the morning. So hopefully, we'll be able to capture everyone for these two. Oh, last question here before I jump off. Do you have a detailed analysis about how many percent ohm locked off the market in a certain time affect the price of ohm? Assume there's no incoming capital. I think it's quite interesting. I think if I understand the question right, what ohm off market how much ohm off market changes the price of ohm? I'm not sure if it would necessarily, because if we consider staked ohm right now to be off the market, then the amount of staked ohm that we're seeing is not, you're not changing the price of ohm just because it's staked versus held. So maybe I misunderstood the question, but I don't think it should change the price of ohm. Just because it's not, it's not being sold if it's staked or if it's locked or if it's just held. So I got to jump off. Sorry, guys, to cut the questions off. I'll timestamp the one starting after the one that Kubatha just posted, and then I'll try and answer them during the next one, and also over text. So again, if you have any other questions, I hope that, I guess the main point of this was to maybe provide a little bit more clarity on how the sheet works. So I hope I've done that. If you came in late after I was kind of explaining how to do different scenarios, then feel free to tune in to the next one, which was announced already for later today. And I will maybe go over it again then. Hope to see you all for more conversation then. Appreciate everyone chiming in. Really good discussion. So this has been a lot of fun. Very impromptu. So thanks all for attending. I will see you all around.